Hello, my name's Tammy, the evangelist's wife. I'm here with Dan, the evangelist, and we are going to discuss studying and things to remember when studying and how to study. And Daniel, would you like to speak?
All right. And so before we get to the whole back and forth podcast type of thing that we're doing, um, she wanted to discuss things to remember when studying. And so, things to remember when studying. The original scripture doesn't have chapters, numbers, or punctuation. You must read in context, as some subjects start in the middle of a previous chapters or in the middle of previous chapters. Read around the scripture for the who and why and for the context to make sure someone isn't misquoting scripture or misapplying it. Parables explain themselves at the end. The internet and AI are sometimes wrong or missing information. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. When researching doctrine, always research the pros and cons side. So both the positive and the negative, the arguments and all that, you want a full understanding of what's going on because then you can also defend your side. Um, okay, and so what we do is we typically, if we find a word or subject matter we want, I do topical studies. She makes topical studies. Um, we use the Strong's Concordance, which is sitting in view now. And we just read every single scripture that has the word in it. Okay? And so it's pretty exhaustive, as you can see. Okay? And then we use commentaries, um, Matthew Henry commentaries,
All right.
Zoverton NIV commentaries, because we mainly use the old style of NIV study, but we also use the new NIV Bible also. We use all the different English translations, and so we not only do the topical commentaries like Matthew Henry, right, and like NIV has its own version also of topical studies. And then what we do is not only do we study out of all the different English translations, we use a interlinear, which is like in this case, it's New American Standard Bible and NIV, and it's got the Greek and English, direct English, if there is one. Otherwise, it has a line in it. And so that way you can study it in the Greek. We also have a Hebrew one and a Hebrew interlinear, but we have many. And so we have different versions for different, contextual criticism. Um, and so sometimes we study out of the New King James Version Bible. There you go. Right. And then here's the newer NIV Bible. Okay. And so go ahead and take those away. Um, we get very deep, very deep. We get into the original languages and we get to the definitions also of the definitions of the Greek and Hebrew words to really understand that it's not being taken out of context at all or context at all. And so then we kind of do a synopsis. We don't use all the scriptures in a topical study. We kind of condense it down into something that makes sense, that takes the person who's studying it from point A to point Z and as few scriptures as we can without leaving anything really pertinent out. Okay, Tammy, go ahead.
Question. When it comes to Bibles, like we have the NIV Study Bible, and then the New King James Version Bible I have is a reference Bible. What's the difference between the two?
Okay, so um, okay, you have different Bibles based off different original texts. Um, they tried in the New King James. Okay, so let's start from the older stuff. Okay, so there are some older original texts, and like take for instance the Textus Rexus. It's based off the old King James is based off that. A lot of King James only people swear that their version is the oldest and best, and it's not. It's based off old. We have updated now Dead Sea Scrolls, papyruses, archaeology, inscription. We have so much more and so much better. The old King James changed like over 1,000 words for that time period. They took the word love out of there so many times. It's very sad.
So
Sorry, but the New King James is a watered down version of the old. They took out the thee, they, thou, and all that, and replaced it with common language in its referencing. While the scriptures themselves are watered down, and I personally wouldn't use just the scriptures as a study guide, the referencing done in the columns is exceptional.
The difference between a reference Bible and a study Bible. Reference is where it references what you're reading, references to other parts of the Bible, correct?
Yes.
And the study Bible has some commentary to it, right?
Okay, so the reference Bible's referencing to other scriptures, but it's also referencing to the original language words and noting what the original words may have been. So it's exceptional for studying, for actual real word study. The problem is it's just kind of watered down. Okay, but it's trying to do a word for word. Okay, which is acceptable. NIV, on the other hand, has a lot more commentary made in the newer version. And the older version has commentary plus archaeology and everything inside of it. But the new NIV is a watered down version also compared to the old NIV.
And the NIV is more...
It is not word for word. The NIV is more... it's giving you the meaning.
Context.
Yeah, it's the context, which is originally how you were supposed to read the Bible, was contextual. The problem is it's definitely not word for word, right? And that's why we use an interlinear. Now, there are some, like the ESV is a horrible version altogether. It was made not on the purpose of making a word for word, beautiful study Bible. It was made to make it more women friendly. It changed wording and it watered things down, put it in common language, and the council for it, or the board for it in the making, was biased and wanted a female friendly instead of an accurate. It was more female friendly, and they had an all-inclusivism made in too. And so I never use the ESV. You can't convince me to use that.
But as far as using a particular type of Bible, what would you suggest? Would you suggest one that you reading all of them and finding one that you can understand the best? Or
help me understand what you're asking better. Do you mean who am I suggesting to? Am I suggesting to a new Christian, a seasoned Christian, a Christian that's wanting the deepest of deepest researching? Who am I suggesting to will depend on who and what I suggest.
Let's say a newer Christian.
A newer Christian is just trying to get a feel for the Bible. You could almost go with what, and I don't know if it's still around, I believe it is, a Living Bible translation. It is so watered down and user friendly, it is not made for studying. It's made for
just reading
and understanding on a mental and kind of emotional level, because that's kind of what you're coming in as. You had a human non-Christian existence beforehand, and so that's kind of what I would suggest for that.
And for deep dive
Well,
studies,
and for your Christian that's studying now, that's going, okay, I got a year in. I've been spending time in a church. I kind of know what's going on. I'm studying. Okay, now I'm going. You really
need a study Bible.
need a study Bible, and you need multiples. I would do this.
Would you?
I would get an NIV and a New King James is probably what I might suggest, because now you're getting into context with the NIV, and it's got commentary and archaeology within. The New King James is going to go word for word kind of thing. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds as a studying Christian that's getting into the weeds but not getting into the forest.
And then would you suggest?
And for the deepest of deep dives,
you would suggest getting different commentaries. There's different commentaries.
Okay, so basically there's commentaries, topical guides, and stuff like that for each version of the Bible. The one that's most trusted by many is the Strong's Concordance in front of your screen. That's the old Strong's. There's other versions of the Strong's, but this one is the one most sought after. And that is because it's trusted and the best revised and redone. It's the best. There's an older version that is just a mess because sometimes the references don't work when you go to the numbers. Now, that's concordance. That'll tell you all the scriptures that have the word in it. But this is based off studying. You can study it with the NIV, but you can also study it with the King James and with the New King James. And so this is good. This is nice stuff here. And in the New American Standard Bible also can be used with this. A lot of pastors do. But then NIV has their whole set of commentaries. Very advanced.
They have their
very
own,
detailed. And so if you're using one of the older NIVs,
they also have their own concordance as well.
They have their own concordance. They have their own topical guide. They have a Matthew Henry topical guide. They have a Matthew Henry commentary. Matthew Henry is possibly the most trusted commentary there is. All your old timers and even middle timers that have studied maybe over a decade are going to be using like a Strong's and a Matthew Henry, because just that combination alone is pretty cool. Now, there is an 8 translation New Testament where it gives you all the different versions of the New Testament. I would say it's not horribly watered down, but I would say it's slight. You'd be better off getting independent versions. Now, that being said, deep diving. Remember, this is your 2-year Christian that has studied their full Bible, can defend their faith, and they want to go, I want in. I want in so deep I can't get out. They want to go deep down that rabbit hole. You need the whole set, man. You get your Strong's. You get go with an NIV and get their entire commentary thing and maps and everything. Get a New King James version that is doing that. I would sometimes recommend the early church father volumes, but that's stepping way beyond.
More seminary type
I want
stuff.
you to get into the interlinears, and I want you to study word for word your entire Bible in the interlinears. That's the Hebrew and Greek. That is your deepest dive. You get away from the translations and you really get in. And if you go front to back, it's going to take you a couple years. That's not easy. And sometimes there's just lines because there is no English equivalent. And so now you're getting a pure word for word. So I suggest interlinear with all the commentaries and everything to match an NIV study Bible. Just my suggestion. I'm just one man. I'm no scholar, but I am studied and trained by evangelists. So it's just kind of what we do. And sometimes a study takes days for us to make, and then we put it in order. and then we sit there and we nitpick and we reorder the scriptures so that it makes sense. Because sometimes when we do studies, there are no comments next to the scriptures. There's just a list of scriptures because we believe the Bible speaks for itself. And so anyway, I hope that answers your questions. You got any more? No, not on that subject.
Not on that subject. Well,
All
thank you
right.
for joining us, and I greatly appreciate it. I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a good night, day, whatever it is for you when you're watching this.